We have a Fox News alert. It is a big one. A federal indictment against Hunter Biden now appears imminent. The president's son could be arraigned as early as tomorrow. He could wind up going to prison. The Washington Post is now reporting that prosecutors are now nearing a decision on felony tax charges and gun charges after meeting with Hunter Biden's lawyers late last week. So make no mistake, tensions are very high at the Biden White House tonight, but not just because of the president and his deadbeat son and his potential arrest. He is a great artist, by the way. Breaking moments ago, the big guy himself has been directly implicated in a serious crime. I'm talking about the president. In fact, a brand new, legally protected, highly credible whistleblower disclosure might end up being the biggest story of the year. Listen to this. According to the bombshell disclosure detailed by Senator Charles Grassley and Congressman James Comer, the DOJ and the FBI are now in possession, they believe, of evidence that will prove that Joe Biden took foreign bribes. Now, this document, quote, this is in the document, describes an alleged criminal scheme involving the then Vice President Biden and a foreign national relating to an exchange of money for policy decisions. In other words, the very definition of a high crime, also a serious felony that, if proven true, could result in impeachment, possible imprisonment of Joe Biden, your president. Now, the allegation is clearly that serious. The document also purportedly includes a precise description of how the alleged criminal scheme was employed, as well as its purpose. But tonight, we don't know if federal officials ever even bothered to investigate or authenticate these very serious and precise claims in any way, shape, manner, or form. Now, remember, the Hunter Biden laptop, that was in the FBI's possession since December of 2019. We still don't know for sure if investigators even attempted to verify the contents. Although John Solomon, he will be here in a moment, he says in his reporting that, in fact, the FBI did verify that the laptop from hell was authentic in the spring of 2020. If that turns out to be true, the next logical question would be, well, then why was the FBI meeting weekly with big tech companies, warning them of being victims of a possible foreign disinformation campaign in the lead up to the 2020 election? And the head of Twitter integrity at the time, a guy by the name of Yoel Roth, telling the AG in Missouri, now Senator Eric Schmidt, that the misinformation, it may be about Hunter. Well, they knew Rudy Giuliani, Trump's attorney, had a copy of the laptop. Of course it was going to be leaked. Now, meanwhile, in a very defensive public statement, the Biden White House accused Republicans of floating anonymous innuendo. And, quote, when it comes to President Biden's personal finances, anybody can take a look. He has offered an unprecedented level of transparency. Not quite. So in the spirit of unprecedented transparency, let's say perhaps the White House should call on the FBI to release the document in question right now. If the whistleblower's allegations are just baseless and politically motivated attacks, as the White House is claiming, and I don't think that will be a problem. But don't hold your breath. House Oversight Committee Chair Comer has already subpoenaed the document in question, but don't expect the oh-so-transparent White House to lend a helping hand. In fact, don't expect Biden to be transparent in any way either, or honest for that matter. We're still looking for answers to the following questions. How much money has the Biden family made? How much were the deals with China and Russia and Ukraine and Kazakhstan and about a dozen other countries? And how much profit did they make? And what were the countries expecting in return for these deals? Why didn't Hunter register as a foreign agent while working on behalf of foreign nationals? And the big question is, what did your president, Joe Biden, know? And when did he know it? And did Joe Biden make any money from any of these deals with Hunter Biden and his foreign business partners? And if he did make any money, how much money did he make? Remember, Hunter complaining bitterly that Pops took half his income, and he had to pay for Pop's home repairs, and, of course, set aside 10% for the big guy we all know is Joe Biden. So why, according to Chairman Comer, were 12 different members of the Biden family reportedly now raking in proceeds from these countries? And as Chairman Comer outlined, why did the Bidens set up all these, quote, LLCs that seem to be shell corporations to distribute the money. And here's the big one. Why did Biden lie to every American over and over and over again about never once talking to his son, Hunter, about his foreign business deals? He said he never one time ever talked to Hunter about any of these foreign deals, but yet we have even photographic evidence. Now, is your president compromised with China, with Russia, Ukraine? Did he take foreign bribes? Is this smoking gun evidence? Has it been destroyed? And is the DOJ even investigating what are very serious allegations? Or will they use the case against Hunter to shield the president and block document disclosures and mitigate any potential fallout by narrowing the scope of this investigation? Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.